It's a sourdough day. This starter does not look that alive, but I promise she's moving. And I promised to show you my 4-day fermentation loaf. So that's kind of what we're gonna do today. A half whole wheat, half not whole wheat, I guess unbleached bread flour. Pumpkin seed loaf, but the pumpkin seed and the sesame seeds are just on the outside. And the loaf itself is gonna be 500 grams, which means we're using 500 grams of flour total. I'm gonna be weighing out 240 today, and then going all the way up to 500 with the bread flour. And I mix and match flours with this all the time. Like sometimes I'll use a rye flour. As long as the flours that you're using have gluten and you're using at least 250 grams of bread flour, then your loaf is gonna turn out pretty good. I'm mad at myself because I just switched up my sourdough method, where I used to do just flour and water first to do autolyse, but I switched that to actually doing the starter in the water and the flour first. I'm actually gonna mix the starter and the water in a separate bowl, but normally you don't do that. Another bowl, 100 grams of starter, 390 grams of warmish water, and we are back in business. Now I'm mixing it up with my hand until just combined. You can also use a wooden spoon. I like my hand, makes me feel like I'm working. And we're gonna cover it with a damp cloth and let it sit for 30 minutes. And this 30-minute sit just makes it stretchier for when we start building up our folds and like building up that gluten. And our dough is looking like this. It might look a little crusty at the top, but it's not, you're good. And we're gonna add the salt. So for 500 grams of dough, that's gonna be 10 grams of salt. And don't skimp on the salt, it's gonna feel like a lot. And what I like to do is I like to wet my hand and then stretch the dough so that it folds over the salt. So you're kind of like encapsulating it a bit. And then pinch across the dough. And then you rotate and you pinch again. And then re-damp your hand as you need it. And what I like to do is I like to scoop up the dough and then fold it over itself, and then scoop, and then fold, and then scoop and then fold until it's smooth. And this whole process of like pinching, scooping, stretching, and folding, it's like a 30-second process. And in a move surprising to nobody, we are gonna cover, and I will see you in 30 minutes. And I saw this on TikTok, so that means you know it's good. But I used to lift and fold my dough on the table, but now you can just do it in the bowl. And I was like, why didn't I think of that before? You lift the dough, it's super stretchy, and you fold it back on itself. Then dampen your hands again, rotate, lift, and then fold it. And you see it already tightened up a little bit. And then lift and fold. And when I say fold, I'm just like setting it down on top of itself. And then lift and fold. And then cover for another 30 minutes. Repeat that one more time. Put it in the fridge to bulk ferment overnight. It is the next day. Our loaf bulk fermented. It's really, really cold. I'm gonna show you how I fold it. I like to do a pre-shape, which is pinching it and folding it into a ball. And then I like to let that rest for 30 minutes and then do the full shape, which is the stitching, which is my favorite part. And everybody does this differently, but I like to do a bulk fold. So fold, fold, and then top down. And then I do a pinch in here, a pinch in here, a stitch in here, a stitch in here, and then a stitch in here, and then a stitch in here. And then I roll it up from this angle so that everything is nice and tight. And then after all like this handling, the rice flour from the top is mostly gone, and I just flip it over, roll it in the seeds. It's just rolled, and then it's gonna go seam side up into the batard. This is now gonna ferment in the fridge for, I've been toying with like 3 days. We could probably push it to 4, but today's Tuesday, so it'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're gonna do 4 days. Morning, nice to see you again. It has been 4 days. I am a little worried I overshot my proofing time. It is firm, but the seam is still there. So all we have to do now is slice it and bake it. I think it's funny, you can still see the seam, but the ear is pretty good. And let's peer it. That should be good to slice into. After cutting it open and upon further consideration, it might be a bit overproofed. I think I just might be a 3-day girl. But that's why you bake a lot of bread and you don't stop, ever.